Welcome to our documentary. Today, we explore one of the most discussed and complex conflicts in the modern world, the Israel-Gaza conflict. To understand today's events, we must first understand the history behind them. In the heart of the Middle East lies one of the world's longest and most complex conflicts. The Israel-Gaza conflict has shaped generations and continues to affect millions of lives. To understand today's events, we must first travel back through history. For centuries, this land has held deep historical, cultural, and religious importance for different communities. In 1948, the modern state of Israel was established, changing the political landscape of the region forever. The declaration of Israel's independence was followed by war, and many people on both sides experienced displacement and loss. These events continue to influence the conflict today. Over the following decades, the region witnessed repeated wars, peace negotiations, political disagreements, and periods of rising tension. Gaza eventually became one of the most densely populated places in the world, while Israel developed into a modern nation with major cities and advanced infrastructure. By 2023, tensions had reached another critical point. On the morning of October 7, 2023, life appeared normal for many people living near the Gaza border. But within hours, events unfolded that would shock the entire world. Hamas launched a large-scale attack against Israel, marking one of the most significant
Governments around the world closely monitored the rapidly changing situation.
News of the attack spread rapidly across international media, and governments around the world closely monitored the rapidly changing situation. Israeli leaders announced that the country was entering a state of war. Israel responded with extensive military operations targeting Hamas positions in Gaza. As the fighting intensified, civilians on both sides faced growing uncertainty and fear. International organizations called for humanitarian assistance and the protection of civilians. What began as a sudden escalation soon developed into one of the most closely watched conflicts in the modern world. Thank you for listening. Continue to Part 2 to understand how the conflict evolved, how the international community responded, and why this crisis continues to shape global affairs. As the conflict continued, world leaders began searching for ways to reduce tensions and prevent a wider regional crisis. International organizations repeatedly called for humanitarian assistance and the protection of civilians, while relief agencies worked to deliver food, clean water, medicine, and other essential supplies to affected communities. For many families caught in the conflict, daily life became increasingly difficult. Homes, schools, hospitals, and public services were affected, creating serious humanitarian challenges. Aid organizations continued working under difficult conditions to support civilians whenever possible. As the situation developed, attention also turned to the possibility of broader regional instability. Neighboring countries and the international community closely monitored events, while diplomatic efforts sought to prevent the conflict from spreading further. Several rounds of negotiations attempted to achieve temporary pauses in the fighting and improve humanitarian access. Although progress was often difficult, discussions continued as leaders searched for opportunities to reduce violence and encourage dialogue. Throughout 2024 and 2025, the conflict remained one of the world's most closely followed international issues. Governments, journalists, humanitarian organizations, and researchers continued monitoring developments as new events unfolded. Despite the challenges, many people across the region continued hoping for a future built on peace, stability, and security. Communities, aid workers, and diplomats all played different roles in addressing the ongoing crisis. The Israel-Gaza conflict remains one of the most complex issues in international affairs. Understanding its history, humanitarian impact, and political dimensions helps explain why it continues to receive global attention. Thank you for watching. In Part 3, we'll explore the geography of Gaza, its strategic importance, humanitarian conditions, and the wider regional context behind the conflict. To better understand the conflict, it is important to understand Gaza itself. The Gaza Strip is a small coastal territory along the Mediterranean Sea, bordered by Israel and Egypt. Despite its limited size, it has become one of the most strategically significant and closely watched regions in the world. For generations, millions of people have lived in Gaza, building families, attending schools, running businesses, and carrying on daily life despite recurring periods of instability. Over the years, the territory has experienced repeated cycles of conflict, ceasefires, and political tensions, making everyday life increasingly challenging for many residents. Border crossings, security measures, and the movement of people and goods have remained central issues for many years. These factors have influenced the economy, access to essential services, and humanitarian conditions throughout the region. As the conflict continued, international humanitarian organizations worked to provide food, clean water, medical supplies, and emergency assistance to civilians affected by the fighting. Aid deliveries often required coordination between multiple governments and international agencies. At the same time, diplomats from around the world continued meeting to discuss possible ceasefires and long-term political solutions. Although negotiations have been difficult, efforts to reduce violence and improve humanitarian conditions have continued through various international initiatives. The Gaza Strip remains at the center of one of the world's most complex political and humanitarian challenges. Understanding its geography, history, and strategic importance helps explain why developments there receive such close international attention. Many people across the region continue to hope for a future marked by greater stability, security, and lasting peace. While political differences remain, the desire for a safer future is shared by countless families whose lives have been affected by decades of conflict. Thank you for watching. In Part 4, we'll examine the broader regional impact of the conflict, international diplomacy, rebuilding efforts, and the challenges that continue to shape the future of the Middle East. The impact of the Israel-Gaza conflict extends far beyond the immediate battlefield. Over the years, its political, humanitarian, and economic consequences have influenced the entire Middle East and attracted the attention of governments around the world. As the conflict continued, many countries increased diplomatic efforts, encouraging dialogue and supporting humanitarian initiatives. International organizations worked with governments and aid agencies to provide emergency assistance and help civilians affected by the crisis. Rebuilding damaged communities is a long and difficult process. Homes, schools, hospitals, roads, and public infrastructure require significant time, resources, and cooperation to restore. Recovery depends not only on reconstruction, but also on long-term stability and security. For millions of ordinary people, daily life continues despite years of uncertainty. Parents focus on protecting their families, students continue their education whenever possible, and communities work to rebuild and support one another through difficult circumstances. Experts often emphasize that lasting peace requires more than military action. It also depends on diplomacy, dialogue, trust building, economic development, and sustained international cooperation. While opinions differ on the path forward, many agree that peaceful solutions are essential for long-term stability. The history of this conflict reminds us that major international events are rarely simple. They are shaped by decades of political decisions, historical developments, security concerns, humanitarian challenges, and the experiences of ordinary people living through them. Understanding different perspectives, relying on verified information, and studying historical context allows us to better understand one of the world's most complex international issues. Thank you for watching. In Part 5, we'll explore the role of the international community, humanitarian relief efforts, global diplomacy, and how countries around the world have responded to the ongoing conflict.